Thank you so much to our first panel. That was a really, really excellent and rich conversation. And thank you all for being here, and thank you all for tuning in. We're just going to do a quick transition, which bridges nicely between our first panel discussion, which was about digital technology and transformation in the operational way, and then transition us into the next panel, which is a lot more about data and data-driven decision making. And so I'm very pleased to be here for a very short discussion with Jonathan Rivers from WFP and Vladimir from Alibaba Group to talk about a new platform which was just announced yesterday called Hunger Map Live, which is a platform which brings together diverse streams of information from weather information, conflict information, survey information about the food security situation in a given country, brings it all together into one interactive and dynamic platform. And this is a real departure from where we were previously before the power of big data and really powerful machine learning, because instead of just getting a snapshot of what is the hunger situation in a place or worldwide at a static moment in time, Hunger Map Live allows us to see it in a continuous and real-time way. So we're going to have just a quick discussion about this, and then we'll welcome our second panel to continue the conversation. So just to start us off, Jonathan, quickly tell us, why did WFP find this was a very important project to take on? Why is this platform needed?
Well, I think from WFP's perspective, we have always collected vast amounts of information. We have extensive monitoring systems in the countries in which we operate that cover a variety of different aspects or issues that affect people's food security. So, for instance, we have very large market monitoring systems that look at price spikes of key commodities. We have seasonal monitoring systems that look at and assess if there's issues with droughts in different parts of the world. We have a vast amount of kind of household survey monitoring, food security monitoring, and also we have baseline assessment information that's collected. And we have this going back years and years and years. And what we noticed, and we've been working towards this for several years, is that we weren't getting the most out of this data because we weren't bringing it together and trying to get a holistic picture of the situation given all of these different variables. And so I think the idea behind the Hunger Map was to indeed be smarter with our data, to be smarter with our analytics, and to bring all this information together to give us a comprehensive look at the situation in all of the countries in which WFP operates. And just one other thing to add, I think it's important with all of these monitoring systems. Generally, we're looking, and you mentioned it, we're looking at a point in time. The key difference with the Hunger Map is that we're looking continuously now. So every day we know the situation in more than 90 countries around the world.
It's really an ambitious effort, and I think what speaks to the sort of the overarching theme of our conversation today is that this kind of thing couldn't be done without partnership. And so I think what's also exciting about this novel platform is that it was developed in partnership with the cooperation of Alibaba. And Vladimir, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to work together with WFP on this ambitious endeavor?
Yeah, certainly it was very interesting experience for us. Being the representative of the industry or the commercial sector, we actually have the limited experience dealing with the nonprofits. And working with the WFP was very rewarding experience for us. Even though the Alibaba Group itself were not foreign into the social responsibility activities. So we have our own poverty elevation program that we implementing in China right now. So when we first time meet with the WFP, it was quite clear for us that we have the same commitment. We have the same goal in approaching the global issues, especially in the area of the hunger, which is just a few decades ago was quite common for China. So we know how to deal with that things. And from the day one, we try to help, because even though we don't have the experience in the dealing with the emergency responses, with dealing with the hunger situations in different regions. But we are expert in the technology. So today, I heard so many things about the big data and AI implementation, the issue of the scalability. All these problems actually very common to the industry, and we are good at solving them. So first time when I, being an architect of the solution, when I met with the team, they had so many state-of-the-art experimentation. I was really outstanding. But the common issue of that, they cannot scale it. And like till yesterday, we still have a discussion, but the mindset is different. We provide them almost ultimately the compute storage, the compute service and the storage, it's basically unlimited for us. So we can provide this compute power for them to tackle one of these problems. So I think that's the area where we are finding the common base, and that's where we start to build our cooperations that bring us into the Hunger Map life today.
So I know we have several data geeks in the room and who are eager to see what we're talking about. So we have a short video which we'll play and talk to it a little bit, so you get a sense and flavor of what exactly it can do and how it works. So before I think it's going to take a couple of seconds to start playing. Give us the high-level highlights. So the whole concept of Hunger Map Live, as we discussed, is that it gives you a continuous look. And I think the benefit there, and I heard it from our chief economist at WFP, is that not to look back and not to just have these static pictures, but to be able to say what's changing. There's indicators that are changing over time. It's giving us a look at the last 30 days all the time. Why is that so important? And when we get to see an image of the way that it works, what are the unique assets of what it can show you when you're looking at the platform?
Yeah, so I think from a kind of high-level perspective, it provides you every day an updated snapshot of the number of people with insufficient food intake, which is an indicator that WFP has been collecting for many years. And it also will provide a snapshot of people who have issues accessing food and thus have to rely on specific crisis, what we call crisis-level coping strategies. So this would be people skipping meals, people giving food to their children as opposed to eating it themselves, this type of thing. So we have these two key indicators that are WFP and international indicators that also feed into larger monitoring, like interagency monitoring systems. We have numbers on those every day for each country and globally, and then subnationally at the region or state or governorate level in each country. And this is the first time that we've actually even known the full picture. It's the first time it's been put together. And so, yeah, I think from a high-level perspective, you know, it's basically giving us key indicators, and it's allowing us to look at the situation daily. And it's also giving us an indication, because we include a lot of other kind of causal factors of food security in the platform. It also gives us an indication as to why the situation is changing. And over time, it will allow us to look at how issues like conflict, how issues like droughts or other natural hazards are actually impacting the food security situation.
Here we go. Sorry for the late surprise reveal, but here you can see a demo of the Hunger Map in action. So as Jonathan was explaining, it overlays a lot of different kinds of information. Vladimir, what would you like to add on to that to sort of give folks an idea of what else it can display?
So basically, what you can see on the map is just a kind of a top of the pyramid that we develop. So at the back end, it's a complex data platform that aggregating the data from the hundreds of data sources. Yesterday, at the panel of the Data for Now, we actually addressed this issue that the nonprofit and the organization like WFP, they struggling to connect the disparate data sources. And the next phase is how to get insights out of this massive of data. So that's what we exactly solved with the hunger map. So we built together with WFP the data platform. We aggregate all the data. We did a computation on our platform, and then we apply machine learning algorithms to do some predictions. That's what Jonathan was referring to predict the key indicators that will identify the hunger situation in certain regions, like FCS and RCSI indexes. We find the correlation between some open data, let's say the weather information, or the NDVI data, or vegetation information. So if we combine all together and apply the machine learning algorithms, you actually can predict with a certain propensity that the food insecurity situation in this region today is this, because the other indicators showing this. And more importantly, it actually can help us to extend our experience in the region where we have the richness of the data into the regions where we don't have much data. So algorithms actually can extrapolate the data that we have and indexes that we have from the other neighboring regions into the regions where we don't have data. And later on, the field officers that actually can fill the gap. So more data we receive, more accurate the prediction we're going to make. So here you can see the example that you actually can not only see from the global scale, but you can dive deep into particular region in a country. And you can see the valuable metrics to understand what is the situation in the country and how, what kind of support and needs they need right away. So basically, it gives you, it sends you everyday call, like, okay, we got this screenshot, and we have to plan to tackle the problem in these certain regions, and they need this certain amount of help. So it gives you this understanding and continuous visualization service how the situation is growing. Let's say if you're providing the help in certain region, you will exactly see the data that the FCS score is growing, which means that your direct support it is rewarding and it works.
So I think just to wrap up, because I think there's a lot of depth there, and I think the power of the prediction, and especially for getting a snapshot of the status in areas where we don't actually have the real-time information at present, but the machine learning capabilities allows us to forecast. I know that it takes a lot of power and it takes a lot of partnership. So just in brief, 30 seconds more, what are the next steps? I know from our announcement yesterday that this will be made available to the public as a global public good starting next month. I believe we're targeting to launch it publicly on World Food Day on October 16th, technology providing that everything works as planned. But it will be available for anyone to use. So it's actually meant not just for WFP, but for others to be able to benefit from, people who are advocates and working on the issues of global hunger. I also know that we need more partnerships and more work together to build it out further. So just in a few words, what else would you say as far as what's next?
Sure. I mean, yeah, so this will become available very soon. But it's the first iteration. We have a long way to go to kind of continue to refine the predictions, to make them better, to ground truth them. We have other types of information that need to flow into this platform. And so we will continue to build out that data lake, per se. And we will expand the number of indicators that we're actually predicting. Hopefully over time, with more partnerships, both internally and externally, we can link this to programmatic information so we can move beyond just what the problem is to actually what the solution could be.
Any last words on the next steps?
Yeah, actually, we are, as Alibaba, we prefer to stay humble. So, but I really would hope that this platform will bring more partnership on this platform, because it's going to be public good. So I hope more data sources will be integrated to our platform, because our platform isn't closed. It's not designed, it's not developed by us for us. It developed by us, but for the public good. So it's going to be open. So anyone who think that you have the valuable data assets, please join the platform. We're going to integrate. We're going to create a new connector. We're going to integrate your data, and you will benefit from this all together. Plus, when we're talking about big data is not only about the volume of the data, but the complexity of the data. So we did a lot of jobs to normalize the data around the same schemas. So by I hope in the future we can deal with the real-time processing of the data. So it's not going to be a batch that is updated daily, which is, for now, is quite good. But try to imagine if you can receive notification in the second when event happen. Let's say somewhere far away in Africa, some region hit by, I don't know, earthquake. You're going to receive the notification right away through the Hunger Map. So the potential of the platform is limitless. I just hope that more organization, more people will be on board with us, and we can make it bigger than now.
Thank you so much to Jonathan and Vladimir, and I think this is a really perfect segue into our next conversation to go even deeper into the power of data to leave no one behind. So please welcome our next panel and thank our conversationalists here, Jonathan and Vladimir. Thank you.
Okay, good morning and welcome. My name is Trevor Monroe, and I'm going to invite our speakers for the next session. The next session is about Data for Now. Come on up here and join us. The Data for Now is going to pick up on one of the issues that was raised about scalability. The last few years, from where I sit in the World Bank, we've seen a flourish of innovation, of experimentation that has been unlocked through big data, through cloud computing, and open data science. However, a lot of this is still at the pilot stage. We're having trouble bringing this to scale. Data for Now is going to focus our resources to help institutions develop the capacity to use and sustain data innovation. I believe we're going to have a video to queue up here shortly. But let me introduce our panelists. We have Andrew Zoli, who is the Vice President of the Global Impact Alliance at Planet. We have Davis Adino, who is the Director of Programs at the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. And then we have Arjun Zaya Arush, the Chairwoman of the National Statistics Office in Mongolia. So Data for Now, without further ado, let's take a look at this video.
We have 10 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But without accurate, timely data to guide our decisions, we might not get there. People remain unaccounted for, and places remain unmapped. Much of the data we do have is from 2015 or earlier, but a lot can happen in 4 years.
17 Sustainable Development Goals are our guide.
This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union.
History shapes the world in ways we can't anticipate. How can we rely on data that is years out of date or never accurate to begin with? We need more timely data to achieve the SDGs. Better data, better decisions, better lives. Join us.
Great. So now we're going to open it up with our panelists. And Davis, I want to start with you. Yesterday, the Deputy Secretary General helped launch Data for Now. What is it about this initiative, and what is it about the speed of data in general that has the development community kind of rallying around this effort?
Thank you so much, Trevor. Pleasure to be here and to join the distinguished panelists. The video has done me substantial justice, and you've also done a bit of introduction for Data for Now, which makes my work a lot easier. I'm not sure how long I have, but I'll try to summarize really. Data for Now is a partnership between the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN, the World Bank, the UN Statistics Division, and many other partners, including all of you who are here, hopefully. And this is a global effort really to figure out how, for the next 10 years, which is dubbed the decade of delivery, action to deliver the SDGs, we are going to close the data gap. The idea is to connect the dots between different partners across the world, across the different regions, but also take advantage of emerging technologies, the advance in technological solutions. And as you heard Matt say this morning, we have 1 billion people now actively connected on mobile phones. This is a huge opportunity, really. It's actually more. He said 5 billion people, I think, if I'm getting the numbers right. But every 15 minutes, we have satellites orbiting the Earth. We live in a time where there is a great opportunity in real time to understand sprawling urbanization, to understand deforestation, to look at coastal erosion, understand where crops are being grown, predict hunger, as you saw with the WFP and Alibaba Hunger Maps initiative. All these technological advances means that we should be making real-time decisions. I think ultimately this is what this is all about. And we should be making real-time policies that help us to address global emerging challenges and issues. So when you look at the scale of the problem, and we're talking about, for example, sub-Saharan, where 2/3 of the population, and the data on poverty on 2/3 of the population is either based on the 2009-2010 round of censuses or surveys that were carried out before 2015. And that's the data that we are relying on. And if you are part of the high-level political forum in July this year, you'd realize that a lot of countries are reporting progress on SDGs based on those figures. And that clearly tells us that we are not in touch with the reality on the ground. Therefore, if there's an opportunity to achieve the SDGs and mobilize different stakeholders over the next 10 years, then this global initiative under Data for Now presents the platform for everyone to participate and be part of that global push. Connect efforts, share methodologies, share tools, share approaches, but more importantly, connect humans to take collective action to make sure that we deliver the SDGs.
Thank you, Davis. Thank you. Excellent framing remarks. And before I get to Andrew, who's going to give a presentation, I want to get to Arjun Zaya. So Arjun Zaya, in the World Bank, we really appreciate the value of traditional survey data to train big data algorithms. Where you stand in the National Statistics Office, what do you see happening to play a bigger role to engage a broader set of data sources and a broader set of data communities in your national statistical systems?
Thank you. So first of all, Mongolia has been chosen as one of the project countries to join Data for Now, accelerating, timely data for more smarter decisions that are really needed. So, and I'm speaking not only as a chairperson of National Statistical Office of Mongolia, but I am also the co-chair of the international community, statistical community. We have a high-level group for partnership, capacity building, coordination within the UN Statistical Commission. And I'm also being now a chair of Paris 21 and having also the presidency for UNSTAP, which is a community of statisticians and census bureaus of Asia Pacific and US. So, and yesterday during the launch of the project, we had also Google there, right? So, and after they went, we just talked, and then I told her that, once I've been told from my parliament member that you know, Arinzai, why do I need official statistics? I can Google it. And guess where Google gets the data, right? So, but in one sense, he was right, because Google gives the opportunity just to set one search initial word, and you get all the information about the issue. So, what I'm in my office since last 3 years, so I'm newly there, and what we've tried to change was to make the website, the statistics, more open. So we restructured the website, we made it more user-friendly. Even if the organization is 95 years old, is very professional, the user's behavior is changing. You know, you don't understand the numbers. Even there are studies that the human brain is getting a visual data 60,000 times better, quicker, rather than written text. So it was very important for us to change, to modernize the website, to make more infographics, to raise also the social presence. In last 3 years, we have raised the users of the website 5 times. So we have also invested into data literacy. We have worked with journalists. We have a handbook on statistics, how to teach statistics for mathematics teachers in ground schools. So it is very important to learn again how to use the data that we have nowadays. It was also said yesterday that there is a huge amount of the data which is actually not being used. So invest into the data literacy, collaborate with all the others. And nowadays, with the huge amount of the data, it is clear that national statistical offices are not the only ones who are producing data and statistics. So very important to collaborate and have also the data, raising up the data literacy. Coming back to the SDGs, what is different to MDGs is, of course, we are having 17 goals, 169 indicators, targets, and 244 indicators that we actually have or have not methodologies, but those are the indicators which would evaluate all the 17 goals. And yesterday also has been told that only 20% of the data that should have been there is being produced now. So if you are not, able to produce the data and to know how are you doing now, what happened yesterday, you cannot, go set your goals for the tomorrow. So it is very important to set again, invest into the data and statistics, and also use the data.
Thank you, Arya and Zaya. So now we're going to turn to Andrew, and Andrew gave me the privilege of actually holding a satellite and talk about how things are changing. You can hold it in the palm of your hands. So Andrew, why don't you give us a visual presentation of what we can inspire us and how we can use some of these real-time data sources to accelerate action and decisions on policymaking.
Thank you, Trevor. First of all, I want to tell you, before I dig into this, how inspired I am by all of you. I remember we've been working on how we might do data enablement of the SDGs at scale. How can we close these critical gaps? And I'll talk more about that in a second. But, a year or two ago, I was feeling like, where's the leadership? Where are the networks coming together? Where are the technical pioneers and the data visualizers working with the national statistical community? And here you are, doing all of those things because of leadership. And it's the leadership of Claire and all of the people in this room collectively doing those things. This was not here like 18 months ago. And I think one of the most important things that's happening right now is that you collectively are making this endeavor cool. And cool matters because cool attracts talent. And what we need desperately is we need movements and talent to be applied to these challenges. So I'm just going to take you through a couple things. I wanted to just share with you a couple numbers. So first of all, this is actually a little bit out of date because this was based on when we had only had 230 defined indicators instead of 244. Forget the 17 goals for a moment. Just think about the fact that we have 193 countries and we have something like 244 goals. So you got 44,000 development projects that these are indicators that have to be moved with action. 44,000 concurrently. They have to be built, implemented, they have to be measured, evaluated, repeated, iterated, and reported all in the next 10 years if we're going to make the agenda, right? If we're going to make that happen. And I have to say, the situation in some instances is pretty grim, and I think we have to look right at the grimness, right at the problem. According to our colleagues at UNEP, at the UN Environment Program, we're only making measured progress on 19% of the environmental indicators associated with the SDGs. For 68% of them, we don't have enough data in the system. Now, that is a terrifying prospect, but the World Food Map is just amazing. Look what they just showed us, right? A continuous real-time system for monitoring not just one of those indicators, but what will be dozens and dozens of those indicators that are linked. And the thing that's so exciting about that is that what we all know in this room, and I think what motivates Data for Now, is that we know that the velocity of information always limits the velocity of action. So to the extent that we can accelerate the velocity of information, we can create the possibility for accelerating action. That means that under the hood, the community that's here, that's working on this day in and day out, we have to enable national statistical offices to produce data, on timely, quarterly, and annual bases. But we actually have to take action much faster than that if we're going to make real progress, if we're actually going to achieve the agenda. So that's what my organization does. And we've been working on a couple things I'm really excited to share with you, but because most of you aren't aerospace nerds like us, I'm going to just show you a couple things really basically. So the first thing I wanted to show you is what we do. So Planet has deployed the largest constellation of Earth-observing satellites in history. Each one is about the size of a shoebox. It's about 30 centimeters from front to back. And we've put hundreds of them on orbit. Actually, if you look at the entire list of the top entities on Earth that have launched, by the number of satellites they've launched, the US, then Russia, then China, then Planet. So we're putting more up every quarter. And what we do with them is we put them in a specialized orbit that goes over the North Pole, down over the equator between the sun and the Earth, so the sun is always behind them, constantly illuminating and looking straight down, and then spinning down over the South Pole and then up over the dark side of the Earth. And as they spin like this, and as the Earth turns sideways underneath them, they act as a line scanner and image the entire terrestrial surface of the planet every day in high resolution. That means we saw every road, every field, every building, every city, every refugee camp, everywhere on Earth today. And in fact, actually, in about an hour, we're going to see this building, because it's always roughly noontime when it occurs, okay? We have a second group of satellites, 15 of them, that image at 70 centimeters. We look at 3 meters per pixel. We're not reading your newspaper. But we have a second group of satellites, 15 of them, that can image anywhere on the Earth multiple times a day at 70 centimeters per pixel. And actually, they do video from space. We can actually watch cars driving down the highway. Now, the question is, when you have all that information, what can you do with it? Well, because we see everything, we're trying to democratize access to that information and, more importantly, use the tools of artificial intelligence to extract the most essential patterns that support the ability to produce real-time information. And I'm going to share with you not only what they do, but then some of the actions we're taking to try to solve this problem at big scale so that we all win, not just today, but for the rest of the period. So we've done an independent assessment. We determined with some academic, external, independent colleagues that our data is directly relevant for measuring 13 of the 17 goals. And the other ones are indirect, and they're a little too indirect for us to feel like we would be confident saying, here's how we're going to measure gender inequality from space. But those tools often have a spatial dimension. So that is, as I say, those problems have spatial dimensions. So these are more indirect, but directly we're involved with these, and really many others. problems, not just of development, but of disaster response and preparedness and climate adaptation that fall outside of the specific indicators, but are a critical aspect of the enabling things we need to do to meet those indicators and move them forward. So for instance, we're working with teams right now that take the constant daily continuous observation of the Earth and combine it with sophisticated ground truth data and actually turn that, when you are observing every single day, you not only get real-time data, but what we're going to be meeting about, I guarantee you, in the next 3 years is predictive analytics. Is not just how the system is doing at the moment, but where we think it's going. And changing the temporal dimension of decision-making based on forecasts, not just on real-time assessments, moving from reactive to real-time to ultimately to predictive. So, in Cote d'Ivoire, we're monitoring all of the smallholder agriculture because we have really good partners who can help us collect the ground truth data and build these algorithms to drive a continuous observation on a daily basis. I wanted to just show you this. See if I can do this. I'm going to go backwards. Otherwise, I have to do it as interpretive dance. It's terrible. This is a picture of deforestation in the Amazon. That's actually what it looks like. If you take 60 days of it and you speed it up really fast so that you can really resonate with it, that's what it looks like. And I'll just say, this is on the right-hand side, the deforestation. But just as importantly is what's happening on the left-hand side. So if you watch carefully, where you're going to see these little spider webs coming off the road, those are the illegal roads that go in before the deforestation occurs, and we can build algorithms that use the same computer vision techniques that Google uses to tell you if it's a cat or a dog to find those roads before the deforestation occurs, and we've helped organizations interdict hundreds of thousands of hectares of illegal deforestation already, just at the very beginning of this, because we can give them the signal to act right at the point before the assets are lost. We're partnering with the foundation of one of the founders of Microsoft, Paul Allen, and a group of academic research scientists to undertake this effort to map and monitor all of the world's coral reefs. So coral reefs are enormously important from every single possible way, from biodiversity, disaster risk reduction, food and economics and tourism, and they're just the beautiful provenance of the Earth that we want to protect. And they are under enormous stress from climate change. So this consortium is working together to produce the highest resolution mapping and monitoring of every single reef on Earth continuously on a daily basis, and to make all of that data, including alerts about where the earliest signs of bleaching are occurring, available as a global public good. So this is like what you just saw for Hunger Map, right? This is Coral Map. This is exactly the same thing. It just does it for a different domain. And we're going to see these set up for, I think, across all the SDGs. A couple of other ones I just wanted to give you a sense for the kinds of things we can see. There are many places in the world, we used to like to say the world is flat. That was very fashionable 20 years ago. The world's becoming more flat. But the reality is, from a data perspective, it's been really lumpy. So, if you live in San Francisco, you live in or Singapore, you live in London, one of the most observed places on Earth. But if you go to other places, it becomes much more challenging. So this is Bangui in Central African Republic. This is a city that doesn't actually receive the same kind of digital attention that some of the other places in the world do. But since our satellites don't distinguish between, say, Bangladesh and Bangui and Beverly Hills, we're looking at all of them with the same frequency and fidelity. We can do some really interesting things. So one of the things we do is we extract all that information, take all that satellite imagery, and we build artificial intelligence algorithms that extract all the buildings and all the roads automatically. So we see every day where all the buildings and roads are. Because we can do that, we can put them on a time series. So for instance, this is Bangui in October of 2017. Here it is about a year later in March 2019. Now you'll notice there's some seasonal variation, and we zoomed way out. This goes all the way down to 3 meters, so it's quite detailed. And here what you're going to see is where all the buildings were grown. This is where all the buildings happened in that 1 year period, okay, by sort of a heat map. And then we can use some other parallel technology with some of our partners to produce a very accurate map of climate-exacerbated flood risk. So what you're looking at here is the zone of greatest danger for climate-exacerbated flood overlaid with where all the buildings are going in. And then you find little places like this where the growth is occurring, real hotspots of growth, for people who are going to be really seriously at risk. And this is the kind of information, I'll just zoom in, you can actually see it with your own eyes. I didn't do the analysis. This is along the crook of the river. Here it is in those two time frames. I just have to flicker back and forth, and you can actually see the buildings going in, right? And there is the floodplain. So what's really interesting is how can we use that kind of information to build climate adaptation policies under SDG 11 to actually migrate behavior and see in real time whether or not those behaviors are happening. So we do real-time data, leads to real-time assessments of risk, which hopefully leads to policy change and changes in behavior that get reflected back in those indicators that tell us in the aggregate how we're doing. There was some mention of what had happened in Mozambique just in the last discussion about what happened in Beira, or this is in Beira in Mozambique. What happened in Mozambique? These two terrible cyclone events. Well, one of the things we do, this is the roads analytics. We now spit this out for every single place on Earth. We actually are working on being able to tell everybody exactly how many roads there are on the planet today. Like one number, how many miles of roads are there on Earth, and how did it change between today and tomorrow? So what's particularly interesting here is that the white lines you're seeing in this one particular area tell you where all the official best estimate of where the current roads are. The red lines are all the things that our algorithms found. So you can see that we have these one of the things that real-time data analysis does is actually going to close these data gaps even where we don't think those gaps exist, where we actually think we have the data, but it's incomplete. And the last thing, this is the very last thing I'm going to say, is just what we've been doing here at UNGA. We're not going to be visible. Like our friends from Baidu, who just shared the hunger map, our goal is to enable all of these initiatives quietly. So I want to just tell you about a couple things we just announced and really the kind of down payments on what's coming. The first one is just yesterday with Michael Bloomberg and the government of California, we announced that we're going to be building these very powerful new satellite, which is going to measure methane emissions down to just a few meters. So we can say it's that flare gas facility, it's that place, that dairy facility or pig facility that's actually emitting these kinds of methane emissions. So we can make the invisible visible because you can't fix what you can't see. Likewise, we just announced with UN FAO that we're delivering real-time daily deforestation data, covering all those forests. Like you said, we're going to start with 8 countries. We actually just started right now. So that's going into an open data platform that they operate. It will be available for all of those UN REDD+ projects covered in those 8 countries, and that is a down payment, we hope, on many bigger things to come. And while I can't make an announcement about it today, a full announcement, I can tell you that sometime as we set up for this decade of action, the thing that we're working on right now is providing that kind of information for the world, for the official measurement of the SDGs. Where we're starting and focusing initially is on the 47 LDCs, the least developed countries. And the reason we're doing that is working with UNS, the Statistical Commission and the Statistics Division, as they're setting up their own data platform for the production of official statistics, because we want to close the data gaps where the gaps are the greatest first, and then we're going to work on everybody else. But we're trying to do this at planetary scale. So we're really excited about all this, and I can tell you that we don't know everything that's going on, and we're really the engineers here to help. So if you have something that you think could benefit from this, please be in touch. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And as always, it blows us away. It blew us away 4 or 5 years ago. It blows us away today. So there's a lot of real-time satellite data, and I think we can all intrinsically appreciate how that can be used. There's a lot going on with text data and social data and also mobile data. So there's obviously capability out there to monitor the SDGs globally. But there's still gaps, and I would like to turn to Arjun Zaya because a lot of these capabilities exist, but nevertheless they're not being used for local decisions and local policy making. And Arjun Zaya, in your from your perspective, what will it take for governments to more consistently use these new data sources and technologies to help them make decisions?
Of course, first, data literacy. If I were a politician, I've been also told, as a politician, you never have time. You have to make quick actions, quick policies, and then, you just, there has to be some systems which would, allow you to make smarter decisions. And it is difficult. And that's why there have to be these partnerships. Even, the hunger map or what you have shown us now, it is so amazing. But if the countries do not know what is happening or how to use it, it doesn't make sense. So that's why the collaboration, the Data for Now project itself will give us the opportunity or even teach, this is what we have. And this is how you could use it. And this would be the smartest way. So if it is done in every single country, in every single government, and not only the government, but the people themselves, even the journalists, if they would know how to get this data and to showcase, that would be amazing. Then we would have collectively reaching all the 17 goals. But if we talk about 17 goals only in these high-level political forums, only at the global international communities, what will happen at the local level? So engagement is very important. Thank you.
That's great, and I think that's a big part of what Data for Now is going to try to do, deliver that local capacity that's needed to put this into action. And Andrew, I just want to turn back to you really quickly. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing to promote data interoperability, not just with other satellite data sources, but potentially with traditional data and other non-traditional data sources.
Yeah, that's a great question, Trevor. So, what we're really talking about here are building new models of participation, collaboration, leadership. So just let me address this point I think you really made that's astute, which is just because we can land an unidentified flying object or a dump truck's worth of data and dump it out in your backyard doesn't mean you suddenly know what to do with it. And these capabilities are moving and evolving really quickly, which means that in just the next few years, I know it's on our roadmap alone, and we're just one player among many, many players. But we are not a silver bullet for anything. One of the things we have to do is build your capacity and literacy and an understanding of the possibility of what could happen. And we have to figure out how to plug in to support you so that you can take appropriately those resources. The other thing we have to do is we have to make the data simple, relatively straightforward, understandable, legible, indexed, all of those kinds of things. That's kind of the user experience side of it. It's the visualization and simplification side of it. But under the hood, one of the most important things we have to do is make sure the data can talk to each other, not just that we can talk institution to institution. So, every one of the many wonderful satellites, there are great public satellites systems that are out there. There are private satellite providers. There's call data records. There's social media data. There's finance data. And when you talk to the people who actually have to deal with it, the first thing they have to do, if you said you have a year to do a project, 90% of the time of that year will be spent sourcing the data and cleaning the data. It's like scrubbing, right? I want to take out all the noise so I can get to something that's statistically significant and that I can feel confident that our statistical colleagues can use it to help a policymaker make that quick decision that they have to make based on accuracy. It has to be real, true. So what we're trying to do is reduce everybody, not just Planet, but we're leaders in this, but we're one of many leaders in this, are working on what we call analysis-ready data, which is ensuring that the data that there are languages that allow us to intercorrelate well, if you got this piece of information from this sensor and this piece of information from this sensor, and by sensors I mean they could be satellites, they could be drones, they could be people collecting ground information, they could be mobile phones, that you understand how to correlate them and that we reduce the amount of time we spend having to clean up the noise and increase the amount of time you have to do the analysis. And so that's not a movement that's, you know, planets. We were very active participants in it, but I'm excited to say that, there's real leadership on the data provider, in the data provider community, to try and make sure that the data ecosystem is really a healthy one, even before the human beings show up to start to use it.
That's great. And I want to get back to Davis. And Andrew spoke a bit about data interoperability, but also institutional interoperability. Data for Now is one of probably a lot of initiatives that will focus on capacity building. Davis, can you share your perspective on what we can do as far as practices and maybe standards to work better with others?
I think it all starts with human beings and understanding what the incentives are for people to actually use these types of technologies. For Mongolia, you know, the incentive would be we are not able to understand the livestock, the number of livestock and the movement of livestock, and to have the interventions in a different country to be about drought, you know, and crop yields. Now, all those dimensions come together to understand, you know, what are the decisions that people need to make. What are the problems and the challenges that we are actually looking at? So as you talk about interoperability, there are all those different dimensions that you have to think about. And then what's going to be the solution? And what are the methods that are needed to actually connect the different data points to get a holistic picture that enables a decision maker to make the right decisions based on timely, reliable, comprehensive data. One of the things that we observe in the work that we do is, you know, people are willing to engage, but again, there are so many other considerations and constraints that they actually face in their day-to-day jobs. And I think Data for Now is all about how do we harness the power of the collective to understand how Planet is delivering this, how the hunger maps can actually be put in the hands of a decision maker. Ultimately, if these are not in the hands of the people who matter, then it actually means death. It means hunger for real people, for real humans. So we have to look at it like that. And I think for us, you know, the countries where we hope to pioneer the Data for Now initiative, and of course we welcome many others to join, Bangladesh, Colombia, Ghana, Mongolia, of course, is going to be part of this, Nepal, Senegal, and many others. We hope that we can demonstrate it's actually doable, and it's doable now. So it's policies for now, it's data for now, it's interoperability for now, you know, it's solving hunger for now. And over the next 10 years, as this was the first UN summit on the SDGs, by the time we get to the next one, we really need to demonstrate that it's actually possible and it's doable, without which then it's going to be problematic. I'm glad Safaricom is in the house because we're also talking about partnerships for now. And together with Safaricom in Kenya, we are working on how their data can actually be used to track ICT indicators, SDGs indicators, working very closely with the government of Kenya and its constituent agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Davis. You got me inspired. I really want to get to work. So just quick parting thoughts from each of our panelists. Andrew?
Yeah, I would say the first thing, well, I'm going to say one thing. We are living in an era of super problems, because that's what the agenda, we've just given ourselves like 1,000 interconnected moonshots. And the reality is that we're managing the SDGs a little bit like launching the astronauts into space without a navigational computer. The things we're talking about here are the navigation system for meeting the moonshots. So we live in an era of super problems, superpowers, and super organisms. The super problems are the SDGs. The superpowers are these extraordinary new data assets that we have. We can today explore any part of the earth, which is usually the thing that they give to a superhero in a comic book who wears a cape. But now we have the ability to use that. And the third one is we have superorganisms. And what this is, this collective, is a superorganism. When you talk about how we're going to partner and bring in our friends at Safaricom and Baidu and Planet and Google and on, and statistical offices and frontline NGOs, that's an entity, that's a living organism, that's like an ant colony, right, that we're building in real time. So the thing that's exciting are these really radical new organizational structures that are bigger than our little individual organizations, what we can do together. And I actually think collaboration is the biggest superpower. All the superpower that organizations like Planet and Baidu and Google provide are nothing compared to the power of collaboration.
That's great, Andrew. Actually, if we have time, we're a little bit over, but we might work in a couple audience questions. Why don't we do that now? We have a microphone. Davis, why don't you offer your perspective while we're gathering some questions?
So should I go ahead? So if you're not part of Data for Now, you need to join now. And I'm hoping they're going to project the slide so you can get the details. For more information, go to our website. There it is. We are happy to provide more information about Data for Now and how you can be engaged, and we are open to partnerships at all levels: global, regional, national, sub-national, village, household. So you're welcome to join us. Thank you.
Aryu and Zaya, and then to the audience.
Okay, so this is my last kind of words at the panel. Share your data, make it open, and collaborate. Partnerships would be my key words. The value of the data is only in its usage. If it is not used, it doesn't mean anything. So on my experience, for example, what we have made is, before, you should have registered on the website, or you should get the mail via email, the data that you requested. And now what we have done, we put all the data for free that we have on the website. So there is an organization, Open Data Watch, for example. It evaluates all statistical offices' websites on coverage and openness of the data that they have. And Mongolia is now currently on place 11 worldwide out of 186 countries, and place 1, of course, in the region. So it is very important to make the data available for whoever wants to use it on his purposes. So all the data that you have, I mean, super, and if it is shared and openly made available, then we have the public good. Thank you.
Apologies, we're going to have to wrap it up, and I'm just going to have to, we'll be around. We do have one question. Please. Lobbied hard.
Okay, so one quick question. Sorry to put my countryman Davis on the spot, but we've just done a census, a national census, and spent millions or probably billions of dollars on that. And based on what the gentleman from Planet has said, obviously that data is already obsolete. There's a great sense of urgency. We have 10 years to implement the SDGs. So my whole question is, I mean, what can you then do to make sure that national governments use appropriate data at the right time to make decisions? Otherwise, it just strikes me the futility of having conducted a census if none of that data can really be used appropriately and with the sense of urgency needed.
The census is absolutely critical, and you cannot run away from that, because what it does is provides universal coverage of the entire population in the country. And for the next 10 years, it's going to provide a baseline of where we are on all indicators, all manner of indicators. And that's very important. Now, once you understand the baseline, especially for the Kenyan census, over the next 1 year, then we need to identify what progress is being made on those indicators. And that is where you need the timely data. So are we having enough kids enrolling in school? we have to use surveys, we have to use other indicators now. People's movements, the roads that were constructed, and the population and the way it's growing. You know, how do we use mobile data, for example, to understand real-time challenges? If there's an outbreak of disease, you cannot rely on census data, but you can actually rely on mobile data to track the outbreak of a particular disease and put measures in place to actually use it. So it's complementary. Maybe
can I just add one thing? You're totally right. The census is like unbelievably valuable and important and central for all kinds of reasons, not least of which democratic purposes. But I want to say the thing that's exciting that we should be talking about is how to design census statistical surveying methods in such a way that they are maximally interoperable with mobile sampling and with satellite remote sensing, so that between now and the next time the country spends a whole bunch of money on the census, we can be thin slicing the progress in looking at population growth and understanding what we're seeing through those other lenses. And that is there's a conversation to be had between the census designers, the statisticians, the remote sensing folks, and the mobile folks about how to design the census questionnaires and sampling methodologies so that we can do the work in between to help make the census more accurate and timely in the intervening period.
Thanks, Andrew. So they're going to bust us off this stage, but can I just say big data needs solid ground truth, traditional survey data to train those algorithms. A brilliant data scientist who works on satellite data does not want to use anything but the best household surveys to train those crop prediction algorithms. So we need small data. I want to say thank you to our panelists and thank you for listening. Data for Now.
Clearly we're having amazing conversations here in the hashtag SDG Action Zone, and I haven't actually had to run anybody off stage yet, which is nice. Our panel is amazing. We would love for you guys to continue the conversation in our exhibition space there. Hello, guys. And for those of you who want to hang here, we are going to break in now on the live stream to the high-level dialogue on financing for development. So we'll see you back here after a little bit of the live stream. Thanks so much.